So for that one, the first topic is to create a workbook. So basically, to create a workbook, all we need to do is to open our Microsoft Excel, and of course we have to rename or save it. So how are we going to do that? We have here the File tab. We have the Save As, and of course then just select the location where we're going to save it, and there. So you can have it on our PC, or if you're using OneDrive, then we can also save it directly if we are connected to the internet. So there, and then click on save. You have to name your file and then save it. So let's have an example. So here we have here test 1, or let's say topic number 1. Okay, so we have different format for Excel. So if you are good in macro, then you have to, in order for the macro to work, you have to save the file as Excel macro enabled workbook. So if we are going to use it as an import file, usually it is .csv, right? It's a comma delimited file format. So there, and we also have the previous version, and if we want to compress the file, then we can use the Excel binary workbook format. Okay, so that is, but for now I'll just have the default format, which is .xlsx. This can also run macros. Alright, so let's proceed and then save it. Alright, the first thing that we have for our topic is, so we already we're done with the create a workbook. Now on our workbook, let's go ahead and insert or delete cells, rows and columns. Okay, so how do we insert, delete cells, rows and columns? So in Excel, let me just put data here, so we'll have an identifier, or rather it's easier for us to identify that something has changed if we put data here. Okay, what we need to do is to highlight or click on the header for which we want to insert the row. We have to right click the row header and choose insert. So to insert a row before a number or before a cell, so say for example we have row number 9, we want to insert a new cell or a new row before row 9, then we just have to highlight or click on the row header number 9, then right click, choose insert. As you can see, the data that we have here earlier moved down because we inserted a row line here. It's the entire row. But if you want to just insert just one cell, not the entire row, then we have to click on the cell itself and then right click, then we have insert, and it will ask you, do you want to insert a cell, and the data will adjust downward, or will the data adjust to the right? So if you want to insert a cell downward, so this will only affect one particular cell, then let's enter, and then as you can see here, it inserted one cell before number 7. Now we can also insert and to select shift cells right, meaning, okay, let's just put data here or here. So I'm going to insert So what we're trying to achieve is once we insert one cell and select the first choice, shift to the right, this number 1 will move to letter B, or on the second column. So everything will move. So let's see. Let's select shift cells to the right. See? So we inserted one cell and we shifted all the other cells existing to the right. Okay. So same thing, if you want to insert a whole new column, we just have to click on the column header, right click, and insert. So that will insert a whole column, meaning all of the cells on this column. Same goes if you do that in the row header, it will insert the whole row. Okay. Alright, so how about if you want to delete those inserted cells? So for this time, we can do it by right clicking the cell and delete. It will ask you again, do you want to, if you're going to delete it, which data are we going to move? Do we want to move the one below, or do you want to move the one shifted to the right earlier? So we can choose one, or we can also select two. We can delete the entire row, or we can delete the entire column. But for now, let's just delete just one cell, and let's move this to the left. So see, it moved. Same goes here. If we want to delete the entire column, we can just right click and delete. So we can also highlight more and delete. Okay, same goes to the row. We can have one, right click, delete, or we can have more, right click and delete. There. So that's insert or delete cells, rows, and columns. You just have to right click the column or the row header and you'll see it there. Okay. Next one is to select cell contents in Excel. So how do we do that? So select Excel contents in Excel. So this is the active cell. It's J5. Now let's go to A1. So whatever is showing on the on the name box, that's the active cell. So here, how do we select contents? We can click on our tab key. If we choose to use our tab key, that is selecting cells to the right. Now if we choose to click on our enter key, then that is choosing to select the cells below it. Okay, so if it's enter, it is selecting the cell below the active cell. If it's tab, it's selecting the cell to the right, the next cell to the right. All right, let's have the next one. So how do we freeze panes to lock rows and columns? This is helpful if we have a lot of data on our workbook. So how do we do that? So we actually have three kinds of freeze panes. Freeze panes is available on the View tab, and here we have the freeze pane icon. So freeze panes, it freezes a portion of the cell to keep it visible while you scroll through the rest of the sheet. This is useful for checking out data in other parts of your worksheet without losing your headsets, or rather your headers or your labels. So say for example, let's put a data here, January. Okay, so we have a data, and let's put here numbers. Let's just arrange them. Okay. Alright, so we have a data. Now, these are our headers. So if we are looking at a data, we want to see which is this for. So say for example, I want to look at June 12th. Sometimes if we have a long list that June 12th, say June 30th, will not be on the view section. So what we do is to freeze the top cell. So how are we going to do that? We go to the View tab, select on Freeze Panes. So we have three kinds of freeze panes. We have Freeze Top Row, meaning it will freeze our header, this portion. So let's click that. So here we already click the top row, meaning even if I scroll, it will not hide the first row. It freezes, so for us to be able to see the label of our data. Same goes if you want to. So let's unfreeze it. We can just click Unfreeze Panes. And now if you want to see, say we have a long list of columns and rows in our workbook or our worksheet. So we can also freeze the first column by using Freeze First Column. So there. So even if we move or scroll it to the right, the first column will not be hidden. So say for example, the first column is our header, or it's where our header is, then we can freeze that portion. Okay. Now, if you want to say if you want to compare data from January to May of 2018, for example, and then we have a lot of data here from 2019. Now, it's difficult to scroll to the right and scroll downwards without being able to see the labels and the previous data. So what we're going to do, usually we just have to click on a particular cell. So if we want to freeze the top row, and we want to show, and we do not want to hide the data from January to July, because we want to compare it to the next data that we have here. Now say for example it's on column Z, then we can just select just one cell. So here we're going to freeze A to G column, and we're going to freeze as well the top row. So here we will select Freeze Panes, as what you can see here. So even if we scroll to the right, so we already column A to G is already frozen. So even if we scroll to the right, it is still showing, so it will not hide, unlike August to December. And even if you scroll down, see, August, September, the header are August to September or January to December is not being hidden because we freeze them as well. We can also do that, or we can also freeze multiple rows and multiple columns. So let's have this. So just make sure to use the freeze panes. So from there, it freezes anything above row 7, and column A to H is frozen. So let's check. So if you scroll to the right, so So we have A to H frozen, or it's still in place. And now if you scroll up, so we are still able to see the data from row 1 to row 6. And we just have to scroll down to see the other data. Okay, so that's how to freeze the panes. Okay, let's move on. So how do we hide or show rows or columns? How do we do that? To hide or show rows or columns, again, we all need to do is to highlight or click on the header, the row header if you want to hide the rows, and then we can right click and choose hide. So same goes if we want to show those hidden rows, all we need to do is to click on the row before the hidden rows, and as well as the row after the hidden rows, and then right click and choose unhide. Right, same goes to our columns. We just have to highlight, click on the header, select the rows that you want to hide, right click and select hide. Same goes if you want to unhide it or show the columns, select the before and after columns of the hidden rows or rather column, and right click, then click unhide. So that's how we hide or show rows and columns. Right, so let's move on to the next one. How do we filter for unique values or remove duplicate values? So here, since we do not have enough data, let's see. Let's create different data here. Okay, so here we have 2 January. So you want to make sure we only have unique values here, meaning there is no repetition. So how are we going to delete duplicate values? So first we have to highlight the rows or the cells that we want the system to check if there are multiple duplicate values, and then we go to data tab and we have the remove duplicates. So here the system will look and check the selected cell if there are duplicate values. So delete, it says here remove duplicates, it's delete duplicate rows from a sheet. So you can pick which columns should be checked for duplicate information. So we've highlighted or selected already the cells that we want the system to check. Now let's click on remove duplicate. So there's a dialog box appearing saying that it's a warning message. What would we want to do? Do we want to expand the selection, meaning it will not only select or check the one we highlighted, but it will expand through all the data? Or do you want to continue with the current selection? Of course, we only want for the system to check the duplicate value on the selected cells. So we have to select continue with the current selection and then click on remove duplicate. Of course, that's in column A. So let's proceed. So we have 1 duplicate values found and removed. So we still have 12 unique values remain. So which one was removed? It was January, because we have another January on cell A13. So that is how we remove duplicate values. Alright, so how do we filter? If you want to put a filter on our list, then we could highlight the first cell or we could highlight the first row or we can just select the rows that we want to put a filter on. And then we can click on Data tab and we have the filter. So filter, it will add the drop down for us to be able to select and filter the data. So you can say, can only choose one, and it will filter and limit the data with the selection we created. So we can also remove the filter and it will show everything. So there. So that's how we filter for unique values or remove duplicate values. Okay, the next one. The next is to split text into different columns with the convert text to columns wizard. So how are we going to do it? So let's make sure we have enough data to split. Okay. All right. So say for example, we want to split the name Fred from the code 001, 002 on a separate column. So we want to split them. So how are we going to do it? To split the text into different columns, then we will need to use the convert text to columns wizard. So here, just first highlight the cells that we want to split. Then let's go to Data tab and click Text to Columns. Here we can choose if it's delimited, so characters such as commas or tabs separate each field. Or you also have the fixed width. Fields are aligned in columns with spaces between each field. But since our data is separated by a delimiter, which is the colon, then let's use the first option. And then click Next. And then we'll have to click on Other because our delimiter is not on the choices. So let's use Others and put in our delimiter, which is the colon. Okay, so see, there is a preview of the data that will be split into two. So I have the name and the code or the number. Then let's proceed. Okay, so for the column data format, it's asking what kind of format will the new data follow. Well, for now, let's just use the general. And let's complete. Well, this time it's actually asking if the system can overwrite the existing data that we have here, because since it will split the data, it will overwrite the next column. But since we already have an existing data, it's asking for a permission if you would like to proceed. If you would like for the system to replace the data we have on the next column. So let's just proceed. Okay, so here we already have the name and we have the values. Okay, so say since we already have the values here earlier, let's just delete and let's just to show you that it did separated the values. So it moved the name and the number. Okay, so that is how we split text into different columns with the convert text to columns wizard. Okay, so we're now down to the last item that we have here. It's to create a list of sequential dates. So how are we going to do that? Sequential dates. So let's have our base date. Say for example, we have February 1, 2019. Here it automatically converted the format of the cell to date. So let's try to drag it down. So see, it pre-completed our dates. So we already have February 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we can actually select how we want the system to fill in the series. Do we want to fill in the days, the weeks, the month, or the years? So for here, it's selected days. Now let's to fill the series. Now let's change it to months. So instead of February 1, February 2, it will provide or select the month. So here we have February 1, March 1, April 1, May. So that is how we create a list of sequential dates. Okay, so that sums up our topic for today. So today we learned how to create a workbook, how rows, columns, and cells work. We also showed today how to insert or delete cells, rows, columns, select cell contents in Excel by using the tab key on our keyboard and the enter key. Tab if you want to select cells on the right. Enter if you want to select the cell below the active cell. We also learned about freeze panes to lock rows and columns. We can freeze multiple panes. We can also freeze the top row or the first column of the worksheet. We've also discussed the hide or how to hide or show rows or columns by right-clicking the header, the column header or the row header, and selecting hide or unhide. We also use the filter for unique values and remove duplicates by going to the data tab and clicking the filter and or the remove duplicate icon. We also have the split text into different columns with the convert the text to columns wizard. And we also created a list of sequential dates by dragging into the active cell and selecting how we would like the system to fill the series. Alright, so that's it for this video. If you want to suggest on the next topic on Excel, just let me know. So alright, so that sums up our Excel for today. So just let me know below the topic that you want to discuss for the next video. Okay. Alright, that's all. Thank you.